Chapter 38, 8 minutes. The orb followed the pod of whales as they slowly swam through the canyon singing. Along the way, Marty and Ted saw several sunken ships and debris from the contents spread out along the bottom. If you want to make gas money for E-Wolf, why don't you use the orb to explore some of these old wrecks? Marty said. I bet there's a ton of loot down there. We've talked about that, Ted said. It's on our to-do list. Someday, we'll come back here for a better look, but first, we have to fix the communication malfunction. I also have to figure out some kind of airlock or expulsion system to get it in and out of the orb while it's underwater. And the keys are the only way in or out. We're safe in our aqua suits, but put a tear in the fabric and the orb will fill up like a water balloon. The instruments were completely waterproof. All I have to do is come up with a way of blowing the water out after we reseal it. Right now, we have some other priorities. Like, excuse me, Leopold interrupted. Go ahead. We have some company behind us. Ted and Marty turned their heads and had a perfect high-definition view of at least 6 gigantic reddish bullets coming up behind them like race cars. They hunt in packs, Leopold said. I thought Ted pulled the controls back and the orb shot up like a ballistic missile. Their stomachs dropped to their toes. Leopold started gagging. I warned you about vomiting, Ted said. Like anyone can control that, Marty thought, trying to swallow the bile sneaking up his own throat. I also told you the orb was quick, Ted added proudly, pausing it about 200 feet above the canyon floor and flipping on the power lights. They had a perfect ringside view of the greatest tag team event ever witnessed by a human being. The whales had whipped around and were charging the giant squid. When they collided, the bottom sediment erupted into a gigantic plume of gray murk and diffusive squid ink. Even with the bright lights, all they could see were flashes of flukes, teeth, arms, and tentacles. Are you recording this? Leopold croaked. Yup, Ted confirmed. Pretty amazing. I've never seen this much violence in one place. It was over as quickly as it had begun. When the water cleared, the score was whales 3, squid 1. 3 of the whales had squid clamped in their mouths. A 4th whale was on the bottom, engulfed by the long arms and tentacles of 4 more squid. There was no sign of the 4 other whales. They probably took off in the confrontation, Leopold said, having difficulty speaking with the contents of his stomach stuck in his helmet. They're probably heading to the surface for air. The question is, were the squid after the orb, or was the orb simply in their path to getting to the whales? I don't know, Ted said. Marty was still shocked by how quick the squid and the whales had been. On television documentaries, whales always look so laid back and calm. There was nothing laid back and calm about what he had just witnessed. There's one way to find out, Leopold said. There are 2 smaller squid lying in wait about 10 feet to the right of the suffocating whale. I see them, Ted said. Marty saw them too, but they didn't look that small to him. They are probably subdominant to the larger squid, waiting their turn to eat, Leopold continued. You might want to take the orb down and see if you can get one of them to come after us. Before I see if I can hook them, how are we doing, Leopold? I'm all right. I mean, it's a little disgusting to have your head stuck in a bowl of regurgitation, and my eyes are stinging a bit from the gastric acid, but I've had worse things on my face. What could possibly be worse, Marty wondered. Ted laughed. You're a good sport, Leopold. I guess I have to work on a way of expelling vomit from the helmets like water from the orb. I'll put it on the list. One good thing. You probably got rid of everything in your stomach during the last maneuver. I hope so, Leopold said, because there really isn't much room inside here for more. If I might make a suggestion. Go ahead, Ted said. Your best technique will be to tease them to the surface, like you are jiggling for them with bait. I would stay just in front of them. If they fall behind, slow the orb down so they can catch up. If you think it's safe, you might even allow them to touch the orb with the tips of their tentacles after time to time. You have to keep their hopes up. I think the quick maneuver you made scared them off. Come on, squid are very smart. Giant squid may be even more intelligent. They'll eliminate their energy expenditure the moment they think they can't catch their prey. I would never let them get in front of you, though. Their tentacles and arms, as you've just seen, are like lightning bolts. Good safety tip, Ted said. He looked at the digital clock on the control panel. We better cut bait. Tighten your seatbelts. We have 8 minutes. Chapter 39. Scuttle. Butch knew that Grace was in Lab 9. He also knew that Laurel, Anna, and Bertha were in there with her. What he didn't know was how he was going to get her or the dinosaurs out. 3 of Blackwood's men were already aboard. Pepper was down at the moon pool coordinating the placement of C4 plastic explosives. But it would be Blackwood pushing the plunger on the remote detonator. He wanted to take out Travis Wolfe personally. Butch had radioed one of the men to Leopold's lab to bring him a little chunk of C4. At a last resort, he was going to blast his way into Lab 9 and hope that Grace or the dinosaurs weren't anywhere near the door when he blew it off. If any of them were injured, he might as well swallow the C4 and detonate himself, because that's what Blackwood would do to Butch or to anyone else who had harmed them. Butch was pretty confident that he could shape and charge around the door's locking mechanism, which would minimize the damage on the inside. But on the other side, he still had a big problem named Bertha Bishop, and she just might more formidable than the door. Also, he considered all the pros and cons. He heard a loud shrieking noise outside Leopold's lab. He stuck his head out the door and came face to face with a parrot, the same parrot he'd thrown against a tree at Lake Tell. Apparently, the parrot hadn't forgotten. It landed on his shoulder and latched onto his earlobe with its sharp black beak. It was Butch's turn to shriek now. He tried to shake off the bird, but it hung on like a parrot earring. Then he felt something tugging at his pant leg. He looked down and saw Wolf's tiny poodle latched onto his cuff. He reached for the parrot to rip off his ear, but it dodged him, jumped on his head, grabbed onto his wig, and flew down the hallway with it clutched in its sharp little talons. Butch tore his lab coat off in a rage. His earlobe throbbed and blood dripped onto his tattooed forearm. He heard something rushing up behind him, and this time it wasn't a poodle or a parrot. Butch turned around, and Bo, running at full speed, jumped and planted both feet into his stomach, knocking him against the wall and taking every ounce of oxygen from his lungs. As he grasped for breath, she tore his glasses off his face, pummeled him with her hands, bit him twice on each leg, dislocated 2 fingers on his left hand, then continued down the hall. He reached for his gun with his right hand and took a shot at her, but missed by a mile. Butch was left-handed. Yvonne came running around the corner and stopped in shock upon seeing the injured Butch McCall. Luther watched the pirate battle on the gizmo from the comfort of Wolf's cot. Within a matter of minutes, the sonic cannons had taken out 6 of the pirates' speedboats, or at least the pirates piloting them. The boats were running in crazy circles without anyone steering them. The cannon operator centered their lasers on the driver of each boat, pushed a button, and a second later, the pilot released the wheel, grasping his ears with both hands and reeling over backward. If another pirate took control of the boat, he too got the laser and sonic blast with the same disastrous effect. The 3 remaining boats, all Zodiacs, seemed impervious to the cannons. There were 2 men in each boat, and they didn't look like the other pirates. They were dressed in black combat gear. As one steered, the other systematically shot out the dishes of the sonic cannons. Who are these guys, Luther thought, and why don't the blast hurt their ears? Blackwood's guys, Al said to Wolf. Paramilitary professionals. They're wearing sonic earplugs. Somehow they knew about the cannons. What do you want to do? Shoot him, Wolf said flatly. Headshots. Joe, Al shouted. Get your sniper rifle. Take him out. Pilots first. Wolf? Yvonne's breathless voice crackled on the radio. Did you find Bo? No, but I found our stowaway, and he's after me. Where are you? On the lab deck. Go to Lab 9, Wolf said. Bertha? Got it, Bertha said. I'm in the outer room waiting for her. She's here. Talk to you later. Bertha was looking through the peephole at a panicked Yvonne pounding on the door. She jacked a shell into her shotgun and opened the door. Yvonne nearly ran her over, pushing through the doorway. Bertha slammed the door shut behind her. How far away is he? He's at the end of the hall, Yvonne answered, gasping for breath. He's carrying a pistol. What does he look like? big and bald. He's bleeding from an ear. It looks like he's been in a terrible fight. Bertha turned back toward the door and looked out at the people. It sounds like Butch McCall, she said into her throat mic. Yvonne says that he's in rough shape and has a pistol. Want me to deal with him as he runs by? Negative, Wolf said. As soon as we take care of the situation up here, I'll come down and we'll see what we can do about running him to ground. Bertha felt a stinging sensation in the back of her legs. As she turned around, Yvonne hit her in the head with Butch's telescoping baton and yanked open the door to Lab 9. The battered Butch stepped into the doorway and looked down at the crumpled Bertha. She had a tranquilizer dart sticking out of her leg and was bleeding from the head. Nice work, partner, Butch whispered. But I'm ticked about the chimp you drugged. He had popped the two dislocated fingers back into place, but his left hand still ached. You told me to create chaos, Yvonne said. I didn't know he would attack. Forget it, Butch caught her off. Go into the other room and dart Anna. Leave Laurel and Grace to me. Yvonne slipped another dart into the tranquilizer gun and walked into the other room with the gun behind her back. Grace and Laurel were standing on the other side of the dinosaur pen. Anna was in front of the stainless steel food prep table. Yvonne could not believe her eyes. Butch and Blackwood hadn't said anything about baby dinosaurs. Are those what I think they are? Yvonne said. Yes, Grace said. Welcome. I had no idea, Yvonne said. How could that? You didn't take a shower before you came in here, Anna said, raising an eyebrow. And you're not wearing scrubs. Bertha just told me to come in, Yvonne said. She didn't say anything about. She whipped out the tranquilizer gun from behind her back and fired a dart into Anna's thigh. Anna ignored the dart and made a lunge for her. Yvonne sidestepped her and snapped out the baton, but it was Butch who put an end to it. He stepped into the room and hit Anna in the forehead with the butt of Bertha's shotgun. In his other hand, he held Bertha's radio. Good to see you again, Grace, Butch said. He looked at the two dinosaurs. Wow, they're bigger than I thought they'd be. He threw 2 cloth laundry bags to Grace, who let them fall to the floor without even trying to catch them. Bag them. No, Grace said. He pointed Bertha's shotgun at Laurel. If you don't bag them, then I'll bag your friend, Dr. Lee. Grace picked up the bags. Bertha's radio went off. Bertha? It was Wolf. Butch handed his pistol to Yvonne. This is a little more permanent than the dart gun, and all the tranquilizer is going to do is to give them strange dreams and a terrible headache when they wake up. If Dr. Lee moves a quarter of an inch, shoot her. Yvonne took the pistol and nodded. Bertha, are you there? Wolf asked. I can't believe that you work for Noah Blackwood, Grace said to Yvonne. Yvonne laughed. I've worked for Dr. Blackwood since I was a girl. She's gotten me every animal training job I've ever had. And now it looks like I get to train a couple of dinosaurs. If he'd told me about them, I would have done this job for free. Bertha? Butch held the radio to Grace's mouth. You better make this good, because if Wolf comes down here, I'll personally kill Laurel, Anna, and Bertha. I'm going to key the mic. Ready? Grace took a deep breath and nodded. It's Grace, she said. Where's Bertha? Wolf asked. She and Yvonne are in the shower. Sorry, I didn't answer sooner, but I was in the nursery and didn't hear Bertha's radio at first. How's Yvonne? She's scared but fine, Grace answered. There was a moment's hesitation on Wolf's end. Is everything okay? Yes, Grace said, we're fine. Bertha said that Butch ran right past the lab and didn't even look at the door. Good, Wolf said. Have Bertha give me a shout when she gets out of the shower. I will. How's everything going on deck? I mean, with the pirates and all. It's under control, Wolf said. All we have to do is find Butch and we'll all be safe. Butch took his finger off the send button. That's what you think, he said, smiling, then looked at Grace. And the transmission. He pushed the button. I guess I better get back to feeding the dinosaurs. Good, Wolf said. I'll see you soon. Impressive, Butch said. You're a chip off the old block, by that I mean your grandfather, not Wolf. Convincing lying must be genetic. Now bag the dinosaurs. We have a flight to catch. Why don't you just take the dinosaurs and let her go? Laurel pleaded. Why don't you just shut up before I shoot you in the head? Butch answered.